The morning Maxwell Granger walked into Nexera Systems, the air in the office shifted. It wasn't just the cut of his black tailored suit or the gleam of the Rolex on his wrist. It was his stride, measured, confident, too polished. As if the entire building had already bent to his will and was just waiting for him to take his place at the head of the table. "Call me Max," he said with a smile that barely reached his eyes. He launched into a speech about agility, efficiency, and disruption. Corporate buzzwords stacked like dominoes. "We're going to do great things, starting now." There was a beat of awkward silence. Then someone clapped. It spread hesitantly, the way applause does at a kindergarten play where no one wants to be the first, or last, to stop. I stayed silent. 9 years. I had given 9 years to Nexera Systems. Survived 2 CEOs, 4 major restructures, and 1 acquisition that almost crushed us. I had built our core product from the ground up when no one else could find a way forward. I wasn't going to be impressed by a man who talked like a TED Talk with a haircut. Max didn't ask questions. He made decisions. Cancelled our structured project reviews by Tuesday. Replaced them with vision strategy syncs by Thursday. By the end of the week, he had fired 3 middle managers, 2 by email. I started keeping notes. Not because I was scared, but because I knew how these stories went. On Friday, he called me tech lead in a meeting. That wasn't my title. I was director of systems architecture. I corrected him once, politely. He smirked. The next meeting, he said it again. I didn't correct him. I just started documenting everything. Then he started making changes. To the product. The product I built. The back-end system that carried 82% of our daily operations. A system I had designed, tested, launched, and maintained when no one else understood the chaos under the hood. What Max didn't know, what no one but our previous CEO and I remembered, was that the architecture was patented. My name was on it. Not the company's. Mine. It was buried in my contract, a protective clause signed off during the acquisition to retain key engineers. The company had a license to use it, sure. But that license was due for renewal. And it required my explicit, written consent. Max had no idea. Because Max hadn't read a thing. On the second Friday, Max showed up at my office door. He didn't knock. Just leaned in like the main character in a bad TV pilot. "Emma, got a minute?" I gestured toward the chair across from me. He didn't sit. "I'll be blunt," he said, "and you always know it's bad when men start with that. You've been here a long time. Maybe too long. The company's moving in a new direction. We're letting you go, effective immediately. HR has your paperwork. No hesitation. No warning. Just a clean corporate kill." I stood. Held out my hand. He didn't take it. As he turned to go, he said over his shoulder, "I'm not about to spend a dime on an employee who peaked 5 years ago." My smile didn't break. "Good luck, Max." He paused, unsure. Then left. I packed slowly. A few personal items. A plant I'd kept alive for 5 years. A USB drive with nothing but team retreat photos. Nobody said anything as I walked out. By the time I reached my car, my hands were shaking. Not from sadness. From adrenaline. I wasn't done. I was just getting started. The weekend unfolded like a storm cloud swelling in the distance. Silent. Charged. I didn't tell anyone I had been fired. Not my sister, who always said I worked too much. Not my best friend, who would have shown up with a bottle of Merlot and a monologue of revenge ideas. And certainly not my ex-husband, who once told me I was married to my ambition. Friday night, I walked the city. Block after block, past shuttered bookstores and glowing corner cafes. I watched my reflection move through the dark windows like a ghost. I wasn't mourning the job. I was mourning the insult, the assumption that I was obsolete. By Saturday, the sting had sharpened into something useful. I found the contract tucked inside a manila folder at the back of my home office filing cabinet. I had printed it the day it was signed, annotated in red ink and clipped behind a copy of the patent certificate. I reread the clause slowly. Notarized. Binding. Clean. The back-end system I built was not company property. It was licensed to Nexera Systems under my name. The license expired at midnight on Sunday. Without my signature, they had no right to use the code, no access to patches, no legal pathway to operate the platform. It had been a precaution, once. Now, it was leverage. At 3:07 p.m., I wrote the email. Subject: Notice of IP license expiration. To whom it may concern. As per the terms of our licensing agreement signed, date, I am notifying you that the license for usage of the patented system architecture, patent #US 9347901B, will expire on Sunday's date, at 11:59 p.m. Continued use of the system beyond this time without renegotiation and explicit written consent from me will constitute a violation of intellectual property law. This is a formal request to initiate a renegotiation of said license agreement. Sincerely, Emma Langford. I CC'd Nexera Legal, the former CTO, and yes, Max. I closed my laptop and went for a run. 4 miles through misty streets, past slow buses and blinking walk signals. I wasn't trying to outrun anything. I was calibrating. Resetting. By Sunday evening, the messages started arriving. An email from HR: we'd like to clarify some details regarding your separation agreement. A voicemail from legal: please return our call at your earliest convenience regarding the architecture license. And then, finally, Max subject line: urgent clarification needed. Emma, I believe there has been a misunderstanding regarding the nature of the product infrastructure. Please reach out directly so we can resolve this before the new workweek begins. I'm confident we can sort this out quickly. I didn't answer. Monday was coming. And with it, the silence I had granted them would end. I brewed coffee at 7 a.m. sharp. Opened my laptop. Checked my phone. At 8:07, Nexera cracked. Urgent, back-end authentication failure. Client access denied, system downtime alert. Max, text message Emma. Please. Call me now. By 8:30, the entire system was down. By 8:42, Nicole, an old friend still on the product team, texted me, "Did you do this? Please tell me you did. Max is losing his mind. Servers are locked, clients are calling, the board is involved." I responded with one word: license. Because this wasn't sabotage. This was a contract. And for the first time in a long time, I was the one holding the pen. By 9 a.m. Monday, Nexera Systems was in freefall. Clients were locked out of dashboards. Internal tools failed to authenticate. Automated reports, essential for 3 board-level investor calls, never launched. Screens across the office flashed error messages in tandem, like a synchronized shutdown. And somewhere between panic and realization, they finally understood, the infrastructure they depended on had never belonged to them. I was pouring my second cup of coffee when the third call came in, this time from Nexera Legal. I didn't answer. Not yet. At 9:31, Max's name appeared on my phone screen again. I let it ring. He followed with a message. Emma, I had no idea about the patent situation. Let's talk. Please. We need to fix this. At 9:42, I wrote back. Happy to discuss licensing. As an external partner. 10 minutes later, I got an invitation to a legal meeting scheduled for 11 a.m. I accepted. And just like that, the power balance shifted. I walked into the Nexera lobby at 10:55, not through the employee entrance but through the front doors. My heels echoed on the marble floor. No badge. No bag. Just clarity. The receptionist stammered when she saw me. Ms. Langford, they're expecting you. 7th floor. The elevator ride felt different. I used to blend in, coffee in hand, laptop over one shoulder. But this wasn't a return. It was a reintroduction. The legal conference room was filled with unfamiliar tension. Nexra's general counsel stood to greet me, flanked by 2 attorneys and a senior advisor from a merger I'd survived 5 years ago. Max wasn't there. I sat at the end of the table and waited. Emma, the GC began. Thank you for coming in. We want to resolve this quickly and amicably. Of course, I said. Let's keep it clean. They acknowledged the patent. Confirmed the licensing clause. Admitted they had overlooked the expiration. Then came the offer. Retroactive extension. 1 year. Same terms. Full operational access. I smiled. No. A beat of silence. Excuse me? You don't get to fire me, crash the system, then ask to resume business as usual. I leaned forward. Here are my terms: $1.2 million for 12 months, non-exclusive, renewable quarterly. Full system support through me or a consulting team I approve. Public acknowledgement of the system's architecture with my name in the credits. Another pause. The advisor scribbled furiously. One of the lawyers whispered to another. That's a significant increase, the GC said. It reflects value, I replied. Something your leadership has forgotten how to measure. He cleared his throat. We'll need to take this to the board. I'll wait. But every hour you delay costs you trust, reputation, and clients. I stood and stepped outside. At 10:57, Max appeared in the hallway, pacing. His eyes landed on me. He stopped mid-step. Emma. He approached, trying to pull off calm. He failed. This has gone too far. We should have talked before lawyers got involved. You mean before you fired me? He opened his mouth. I held up a hand. I'm not here to argue. I'm here to negotiate. Your job might depend on that. So if you're smart, you'll let legal do their job. He bristled. I stepped past him. Oh, and Max? Good luck. I didn't look back. At 12:03 p.m., I returned to the conference room. This time, they were ready to talk terms. And I was ready to make history. The board met early Wednesday morning. I didn't hear it from Max. I heard it from Nicole, who texted me just after 8 a.m. The board's calling an emergency closed session. Max is in full-blown spin mode. He's trying to frame it like you never disclosed the license expiration. I didn't reply. At 9:23 a.m., my phone buzzed. From, Board Chair, please join us for a closed session at 11 o'clock. Your insight will be valuable to the ongoing discussion. That word again, valuable. 2 weeks ago, I had been labeled redundant. Now, I was essential. At 10:55, I stepped into the executive boardroom on the top floor, marble table, panoramic windows, the scent of overpriced coffee brewing in the corner. It was the same room I'd once presented in during a system upgrade proposal. Back then, I had stood in the corner. Not today. Today, I walked to the seat with my name placard. Max was already inside. He looked composed, but his eyes betrayed him. Arms crossed. Phone face down. His posture screamed control. His aura screamed panic. The chair began the meeting, then turned to me. Emma, thank you for coming. We'd like your perspective. I stood. Didn't read from my notes. Looked every board member in the eye. Leadership isn't control, I said. It's clarity. Understanding the systems that power your company, technical and human. When Max came in, he didn't listen. He bulldozed. He didn't understand the architecture or the people behind it. I paused. He fired me without a review. Then learned about the patent after the fact. Then spun a story. Not because he misunderstood, but because he assumed he'd never be held accountable. Max opened his mouth. The board chair raised a hand. "You'll have your turn, Mr. Granger." I continued. "I didn't shut down the system. I enforced a contract. Something this leadership team failed to track. I gave this company years of innovation, and was cast aside without a conversation." Another pause. A board member leaned forward. "What would you do differently, Ms. Langford?" I smiled. "I wouldn't be in Max's seat. I'd be beside someone who listens, who builds systems around people, not just profits. Someone who doesn't wait for a crisis to show respect." Silence. Then the chair said, "Thank you. We'll call you back shortly." I stepped out. Closed the door behind me. Inside, voices rose. At 11:47, the door reopened. "Emma," the chair said. "Please come back in." I entered. Max was gone. The chair's expression was formal. Controlled. Effective immediately, Maxwell Granger is placed on administrative leave pending formal review. We'll release an internal statement clarifying recent events, including public recognition of your contribution. He handed me a draft. I read the first line aloud. "We acknowledge Emma Langford's leadership, innovation, and intellectual property as vital to Nexra's success." I lowered the page. "I've agreed to the licensing," I said. "But I want to offer consulting. Not full-time. Just long enough to stabilize the system, and help you build protections so this doesn't happen again." The chair nodded. "Consider it done." As I turned to leave, he added, "Emma, you didn't just protect the system. You saved the company." I nodded. "I know." And I walked out, lighter than I'd felt in years. That afternoon, the official statement went live. Effective immediately, Maxwell Granger has been placed on administrative leave. Nexra Systems formally acknowledges Emma Langford as the architect of our core infrastructure. Her patent and licensing terms are now part of our official operations. The halls that had once gone silent when I passed now filled with quiet nods, brief congratulations, even respect. But I wasn't there for redemption. I was there to leave something better behind. The next Monday, I returned to Nexra, not as an employee, but as an architect of change. This time, there were no whispered doubts or sidelong glances. The air carried something else, clarity. People stepped aside as I passed through the 7th floor. Some offered brief smiles. Others simply nodded. That was enough. I met with legal first. Not to revisit the crisis, but to begin reshaping the structure that had enabled it. I presented a framework. Mandatory IP reviews during all executive transitions. Whistleblower protections tied directly to board oversight. Credit attribution standards in engineering documentation. A mentorship program for junior staff around ownership and legal awareness. They listened. Carefully. And more importantly, they took notes. By the end of the week, the consulting agreement was finalized. 90 days. My terms. My pace. I'd guide system stabilization, mentor the next technical lead, and implement internal reforms. It wasn't a comeback. It was a legacy install. People still asked me if I was coming back full-time. My answer never changed. No. I'm building something new. 2 weeks later, I stood outside Nexra after a long meeting. The city hummed behind me. A group of interns walked past, laughing about something on Slack. One of them slowed. She wore thick glasses and a nervous smile. "Are you Emma Langford?" I nodded. Her face lit up. "Thank you. What you did, it's kind of legendary. We talk about it all the time. You made it okay to speak up." I smiled. Genuinely. "Then keep speaking up," I said. "Don't wait for permission." She nodded and jogged to catch up with her group. I watched her go. That night, I took the train out of the city. No laptop. No meetings. Just silence. I wrote in my journal for the first time in weeks. A single sentence stood out. I never asked for power. I asked for recognition. When they couldn't give me that, I built my own table instead of begging for a seat at theirs. Months passed. Nexera stabilized. Culture began to shift. Exit interviews were restructured. Training on IP law became part of onboarding. Attribution was no longer optional. Max's leave became permanent. The board cited irreconcilable leadership differences. Rumors spread, past terminations, buried complaints, leadership misconduct swept under legacy rugs. None of it surprised me. What mattered was the shift. Not just in policy, but in posture. Engineers spoke more freely. HR listened harder. The company, slowly, was learning how to value what couldn't be bought: trust, clarity, and contribution. Today, I run my own consulting firm. I work with companies who don't just want flashy innovation, they want sustainable systems and empowered people. I choose my clients carefully. I set boundaries without apology. And I read every contract line by line. Because this story was never about revenge. It was about value. Visibility. And the quiet strength of someone who refused to disappear when the system tried to erase her. So to anyone who's been dismissed, underestimated, or labeled too intense for knowing your worth, you don't need to shout to make an impact. You just need to stand firm, keep your proof, and let the system crash without you. And when they come calling, don't beg for your seat back. Build your own table. Then make them earn their way to it.